I what up, what up, what up? It's been a minute, but I always have some issues and some drama, you know what I'm saying? But I'm good now. You know, I got my man Prescott in the building, ultimate
Let's go.
Buffalo Bills fan.
What's good, my man?
He's he's white, but he's cookout white. So, you know, we got we good, we good,
I
we
got my
good.
bona fides ready for you.
Hey, you good, man. You ain't no jar of mayonnaise, man. We straight. Nah, man.
That miracle whip it up.
I'm just glad, you know, you like the only Bills fan that I know, you know. How's it feel to finally be winning the last few years? To finally be winning.
Yo, I'm not gonna lie, it's wild to have expectations because every time I roll through social media over the past like decade or so, everything I do is I try to find ways that the Bills could win, but why I think they're gonna lose. And people call me people call me a bad Bills fan. And if you want to call me that, it's whatever. But it's weird having expectations because I'm so prone to they've been breaking my heart for 30 years. So I'm you don't have to get ready if you stay ready. So that's been my mentality, but it's nice to have some expectations and know the Bills are actually good and legitimately good, and it's not a fluke.
Yeah, man. I ain't gonna lie. I was so happy, you know. I kind of wanted y'all to fail, but I'm gonna tell you why. Like, this is why. I got over that. I'm cool with it now. I'm cool with you winning now. But who is it? When Sean McDermott sat out Tyrod Taylor for Nathan Peterman, and then he went on for 5 picks, I was like, this is bullshit. I hope they never win. I hope they never win.
Nathan Peterman was defensive player of the week for the Chargers that year.
God,
5 picks in the first half. That was disgusting.
I was like, bro, they had the nerve to put Tyrod back. No, he needs to ignore all this.
I'd rather go to LA and get my lung punctured than go back and play for Buffalo again.
Bro, that was, yeah, so I ain't gonna lie. Like, and when they drafted Josh Allen, I wasn't the biggest Josh Allen fan. Nothing he did personally, but like, I was like, you know, he got a lot of these problems that Lamar Jackson got, but nobody telling him to be a tight end. So I'm thinking,
yeah, well, there was that, and I just didn't think that Buffalo needed to trade up to get him because they were at like 12 and they went up to 7. And I remember that draft pretty vividly because like Chicago had just taken Trubisky, so they weren't going to bail. Yeah. The Niners had like the Raiders still had Carr. The Bucks still had Winston before he had his, ESPN 30 for 30 season. Like there were teams that weren't going to go get it, teams that weren't going to go get a quarterback. So they didn't have to draft up to, or they didn't have to trade up to go get him. I'm glad they still got their guy, but it didn't seem necessary to me.
Hey, sometimes, you got to just make sure because you never know. Because even then somebody else could trade up and take him. So, you probably could have waited, but then somebody could have swooped in front of you and took him.
Yeah, the only other team that made a move to trade up to get a quarterback was actually Arizona. Like after Buffalo did it, Arizona moved up to go get Josh Rosen.
I think if Josh Allen was available, they would have went up and got him.
They may have, but like it was wild because people were still super high on Josh Rosen coming out, and like I say, Arizona trade.
That's who he is, Josh Rosen.
Sage's younger brother.
They don't know who Sage Rosenfels is. That's good. That's not somebody you need to know.
No, that's a blast from like 2003.
I don't even remember. I just know that I was like, this is like one of those backup quarterback names that just stayed in Madden for like, who is this dude?
He was backing up David Carr for Houston, I think, back in the day, like when they were an expansion team, or at least at some point in time.
I feel bad for David Carr.
Oh, I do too, man. Him and Andre Johnson, those two dudes deserve better.
I mean, at least Andre got the good part of Matt Schaub. David Carr didn't get anything.
Yeah, he got Matt Schaub before he started throwing pick sixes every other throw.
Hey, Sherman caught one of them. Sherman caught one. I remember that. But speaking of Seahawks, man, just want to get on this about Geno. So everybody hears all the rumblings. We see how well he's been playing. And I'm just wondering, do you think it's going to last? Because, there are a lot of people thinking he's going to come back to earth. So what do you think?
I'm kind of in the same boat. I think that if anybody told you before the season started that Geno was going to be this, that you need to cut ties because that man is a habitual liar. Like there's nobody going into the season who thought that. I mean, he's not necessarily setting the world on fire, but he's doing what he's supposed to do, and he's taking care of the ball. And what I usually see, you see this sometimes with like backup quarterbacks and rookie quarterbacks where they might get off to a hot start because there's not a whole lot of tape on him. Like he hasn't started in like what, 8 years or something like that. There was a huge gap between his last start.
I mean, he had some
And
cleanup last. He started
yeah,
like 5-6 games last year.
are they okay? Yeah, but like before that, like there was a huge window where like he hadn't played at all.
Mhm.
So I think he's gonna even come down to earth doesn't even seem necessarily fair because it's not that he's not putting up Mahomes numbers, but I just don't know what I'm worried that they're gonna do is they're gonna do what these other teams have done in the past, the guys like with Garoppolo and Goff and Bortles, and they're gonna pay him just stupid money based off team success. Because if they do that, Seattle's going to handcuff themselves. But they can get into like a team-friendly deal with Geno. I'd be okay with him still being the starter for the next, 2-3 years, something like that.
Seattle's luckily in the perfect position because if this continues, Geno ain't gonna go nowhere because the market for him will be low, be a low market because there isn't a team right now that would pay Geno starter money. They would either draft a quarterback or go with what they already have.
Yeah.
The only team that I could think that would be Tampa, and that's assuming Tom Brady retires. But
yeah,
even
I don't
even
even know if I
even
trust that.
I mean, I don't. That's like that would be my only guess. Anybody else either has a draft pick, either has a high draft pick, or they owe somebody money. So they're not gonna, like the Colts would be a good place for them, but you got to pay Matt Ryan,
The
and then you're
Colts would,
probably gonna have a decent draft pick.
bro, the money that those guys have paid to like Philip Rivers and Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz over the past few years is just absolutely staggering what
They
they've paid. It's
they still
stupid.
scapegoated Wentz. I'm still mad about that.
Yeah.
They
But
scapegoated Wentz pretty hard.
yeah, they did for sure. But when it comes to Seattle, like I'm with you. The biggest concern though is because we do see these starting quarterbacks. Like if they win, okay, let's just say Seattle wins the division and they host a playoff game, and let's just say they win. That Seattle fans, because most fan bases are like, yo, this quarterback got us here. We got to pay him. We can't afford to lose him. And then front offices cave and they give $35-40 million. If you're paying Geno Smith $40 million, which is essentially almost 25% of your cap, you're handcuffed and you're done. But if they can get him as a starter for around 2025, I think that's a good deal for Seattle. And I think it's good for everybody.
They will, because he can't, like I said, he can't go nowhere. No one
No,
else is gonna pay. No one else is gonna pay him like that because they don't really have to.
Most likely not, but I'm just saying, like, what I'm worried about is then he's got Seattle by the balls.
I think
he's
I think 20. If I was Seattle, I'd give him 2 years, 2-year 40, 2-year 45 million.
See, I think that's more than fair because again, with him, because he's 30.
He's 32.
32.
Yeah, I mean, like young 32. He doesn't have the miles on him.
That's true. But the other thing too is like once you just get to a certain age, and you and I talked about our ages, you're 27, I'm 38. I feel way different now at 38 than I did at 32, even though I got less mileage on me, just sitting in my chair at my office desk for my 11 hours a day. But yeah, like that once, even though he's 32 and he's got low mileage, like you said, if you start getting to 35 years old at the quarterback position, he's going to lose some of his mobility. The arm strength is going to deteriorate a little bit. I think that 2 years, 25, 2 years, 20 per year, 22 and a half, like you said, I think that's a fair market price and longevity. So you're not committing to him 5, 6, 7 years, because I think that's a dumb move too.
Yeah. I just think, and also the one thing about Geno, I'm not gonna say I thought Geno would be this good, but what I did think was that I think confidence, having certain guys around you, gets the best out of you. If you play quarterback under Rex Ryan, like you're not like that's not really the success for good quarterbacking.
No, that's not conducive to your success and your growth.
He went to the Jets when the Jets were at their worst. Like after the Sanchez era, Geno Smith came in and the Jets were just a mess. So
it is kind of wild to think what the trajectory of Geno's career would have been had he not got sucker punched.
Yeah, because actually he was a starter that year. Because if you look at his first year to his second year, he improved. And then I think it was the third year, that's when he got punched, dude broke his jaw. And he missed like 6 weeks. And then I don't remember who the quarterback was. Was it Josh McCown? I can't remember who it was.
You know, if it wasn't, it should have been, because I feel like he's been the Jets quarterback since 1998.
Man, Josh McCown been everybody quarterback.
He's been everybody's quarterback. That dude almost jumped the line and got a coaching job too. Man, that was wild.
You remember he was coaching, and then somebody brought him. Who brought him back?
It was New England.
It was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, wasn't it New England?
No, it wasn't New England.
Or Cleveland.
Who the hell brought him back? It was Philly. I think it was Philly. Was it Philly? I'm gonna have to look that up.
It's one of the 4 or 5 franchises who've been recycling this.
He was coaching, and somebody asked him if he wanted to come back. I can't remember who it was. I gotta look that up. I can't.
There was somebody. I feel like a McCown is always in like either the Eagles, Browns, or Patriots.
Philly would be my guess. That's who I think it is.
He's always going to be, the McCown name is just going to be recycled through NFL history.
Man, I love that guy, man. Josh McCown. You know, give me a Josh McCown or Ryan Fitzpatrick, man. I'll take my chances.
I love watching Fitzy play, man. He's my spirit animal.
Hey, man, that dude, he deserves so much more.
He does.
But let's get into this Jalen Hurts stuff, man.
Yeah.
And I know you're a little biased on Josh Allen MVP talk, so you know.
Not really.
You're not biased on him?
It's not so much that, it's just like I've seen the way that this story has kind of materialized over the past. This is now his 5th season, and I think that people forget what Josh Allen was his first 2 years.
Yeah, he was like Jalen Hurts.
And what I see from Jalen Hurts is exactly, I've talked about this on my podcast, is that when you get like first and second round quarterbacks, but you don't have the talent around them, I don't think that you can really fairly evaluate these quarterbacks. So when
not even just a first or a second rounder, if whoever's your starter, that's truly how you evaluate a quarterback. You got to give them adequate if you give them adequate everything, and then you see what they do.
It's kind of like with Tua, because Tua last year had one of the worst offensive lines in football. It's hard to really evaluate who he is as a guy when his only real weapon is
Teron Armstead in.
Yeah, you get him, you get a creative offensive coach, then you go get Tyreek Hill. And that's kind of the same thing with Josh Allen, is that once they got Diggs, that entire offense changed. And then that's when Josh Allen started to look like a potential MVP candidate. And it's kind of the same thing with Jalen Hurts, is that when they made that move to AJ Brown, I thought, okay, this is the year. If he doesn't make a huge step this year, then you probably cut ties with Jalen Hurts, so you're not in a position to have to pay him $35-40 million down the line. Same thing with Daniel Jones. If Daniel Jones didn't make a huge step, you got to cut ties with him too, so you're not handcuffing your franchise. But I think that Jalen Hurts, if you want to put him in the MVP conversation, I think that it's warranted. I don't know if he'd get my vote if I was a voter, but I think you could obviously make the argument for it given the progression and the way that 8-0 is 8-0. It's kind of hard to argue with those results.
Mm-hmm. They always try to say, "Oh, you didn't beat anybody." Man, you got to beat who's in front of you, man. Like, you don't make the schedule. You gotta beat who's in front of you.
Now I have mixed emotions on that, because everybody says that, because I get that a win's a win, and in the column it is. But to me, who you beat and how you beat them matters. Because I've used this analogy beforehand, like with the Raiders a handful of years ago. They won a bunch of three-score games, and everybody's like, this is the Raiders. They're going to be good next year. There's 3 to 5 great teams. There's 3 to 5 who are absolute dog shit. And then there's about 20 to 22 who are anywhere between 6-11 and 11-6, depending on a couple bounces one way here or there. That's why you see these spreads that are like 2 points, when a home field advantage is usually worth 3. Almost 75-80% of these games are pick'ems. So that's why I don't buy too much stock into that. As far as like who you beat, like it does matter. But like when I see Buffalo beating the brakes off of like Pittsburgh by 30, it's like, okay, it's an NFL team against an NFL team, and you beat the brakes off them. That's a good football team. If you're getting by like 3 and 4 points every single week, I still got to see that you can put somebody away. That's why I don't believe in Philly, or not Philly.
I mean, Philly has put a couple teams away.
Oh yeah, no, they spoke Pittsburgh as well. But I'd be like, that's why I'm not huge on the Jets or the Giants. I don't care about your record. I'm not high on either of them.
I'm like, the Giants kept winning all these ugly games.
Yeah.
And like when they played against Seattle, the ball didn't bounce their way. The ball,
exactly.
Like the ball bounced. Richie James not gonna fumble 2 punts again, but still the ball. But yeah, that's just an example of the ball not bouncing their way. And like,
and like in
Gino, a lot of ugly games.
Yeah.
I can't believe in you.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like like you said, you're like, a win's a win. You can only play who's in front of you. And yes, that's true to a degree, but this is the whole argument I've had with the Patriots forever. Like, the reason why you were so dominant and got to host so many playoff games is you played in just a doo-doo butter division for 20 years. Incompetent Bills, Jets, and Dolphins. Of course, like, you weren't beating anybody, but you got to get at least 4 to 5 easy wins in your division every single year. You were hosting playoff games, you were getting first round buys. And of course, like, that's the recipe for success. So I'm not trying to downgrade what New England and Tom Brady have done. I'm just saying, with some context, you can say, well, who'd you beat? A third of your schedule is wiped off right from the get-go in those from the 2000 to 2020, basically.
Yeah. Who you beat, Matt. Like, yeah, who you beat does matter. You know what I'm saying? But like you said, like, you have to, like, at some point you have to, like, assert your dominance. Like, you got to be able to win both. You gotta assert your dominance. You got to assert your dominance. You got to be able to win an ugly game, and then you got to be able to come back. You got to be you got to be able to prove you can do all three.
Yeah, you know? I agree with that 100%, because, like, I don't want to discredit, like, when you win ugly, because sometimes you don't have your best stuff. Sometimes you have just an awful matchup, and sometimes you have to go off script and you got to win ugly. There's
like when the Eagles did against the Jaguars.
Yeah,
that was disgusting. That was awful. The score was kind of high, but I was like, that was awful.
Well, you could even chalk that, like, even Buffalo. Everybody thinks that Buffalo's been dominant, and for the most part, they kind of have been. But if you go back to the Miami game, the Bills had like 3 times the yardage, over twice in time of possession, and, like, they dominated Miami. But because it was 150 billion degrees on their sideline, they were just gassed. And like you said, yeah, with Baltimore, they played poorly, but they won ugly. But Miami, they dominated that game start to finish. But
games are always different, man.
Always different, yeah. So it happens sometimes.
So we talking about Miami. Now we got to get into the Tua thing. And if you've been in the chats, there's the whole Tua versus Herbert thing. And one of the things that bothered me was, it was like, if you gave Herbert, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle, I'm like, I mean, yeah, but let's not act like Herbert didn't come into the damn Chargers, who
with no weapons,
who at least, like, I'd rather come into the Chargers than have Devontae Parker and Jakeem Grant as my receivers. And I don't know who the hell was the running back. Who was Tua's running back when he came in the league? I don't remember. Well, Myles Gaskin?
They had Gaskins for a bit, and then Edmonds came over this year, right?
Yeah, Edmonds came this year.
Yeah, so it was largely Gaskins was
Myles Gaskin. I don't even know if he's on a roster. Like,
yeah, I'm not really sure either.
Like, I don't know if he's on a roster. I'm just saying, like, Tua finally gets an elite receiver and he balls. We can say whatever we want about Mike Evans but Keenan Allen's been an upper echelon receiver pretty much his whole career. So I'm like, man, you a quarterback, you get Keenan. If you're a quarterback, you get Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Austin Eckler. That's a good start. Tua didn't have that. Yeah. And now Tua gets it and he's balling out. It's amazing what an offensive-minded coach and getting an elite receiver can do for a quarterback.
Well, the other thing that I think that some people they undervalue initially is, when we saw Herbert going just bonkers his rookie year, I think that what people don't take into context is that was the COVID year. There was nobody in the stadiums. So when you're looking at how you can call audibles and have to slap protections and deal with crowd noise, he went from being at Oregon and playing in where, when he's playing and he's on offense, it's crickets basically, and then going to the NFL and not having to deal with any of the outside noise on the playing field. It makes it a lot easier for you to be able to make those adjustments as a rookie quarterback. So again, I'm not trying to necessarily take anything away from. I think that if I'm looking at talent, I think that Herbert's the more talented quarterback. But but what you're saying is fair too. Is like, he didn't come into just like a trash. Yeah, he didn't come into a trash organization with nothing. Keenan Allen now is a shell of himself, but 3 years ago,
Keenan Allen, I think, is just hurt. I think he's
just always banged up.
Yeah, but another thing about Tua, the Dolphins didn't even really believe in Tua. The Chargers came in when they drafted Herbert. They were like, okay, this is our guy. This is what we want for the next 10, 15 years. The coach was on board.
They were drafting offensive linemen
before Brandon Staley. Oh, Anthony Lynn.
Anthony Lynn, yeah,
Anthony Lynn, yeah. But even then, he was on board. So, like everybody was
yeah,
on board, and that makes a difference. Like Tua, like Brian Flores didn't want Tua.
nah.
Like Mike
Well, because
McDaniel,
they were trying to get Brady, and Brady was trying to get like into ownership.
it was a
That
whole
whole
type.
thing was wild.
Miami was a damn mess, and Tua had to deal with that. And every time Ryan Fitzpatrick or Jacoby Brissett came in and played decent, they try to get Tua off the damn team.
Yep.
I'm like, golly.
Yo,
Like, so
you pitched your
you got a
6 innings. It's
defensive
time for the
minded
reliever.
coach. You got whack ass receivers. You got a trash offensive line.
A
And you
running
got
back that's not in the
motherfuckers
league
that don't
anymore.
believe in you.
Yeah, like the deck was stacked against him to succeed for, like, to be completely honest, that's what it felt like from the outside looking in.
Nah, that's what it was. That's what it was. That's why I brought up the whole thing with Geno. When you have a coach and you have competent weapons and competent offensive line, now you see. Now I didn't know he was going to be that great, but you see, I was like, if you give him all that, maybe you'll see much better than you think you will.
And I think the other thing you're seeing with Geno, along with some of the other quarterbacks who are having success, is the fact that Pete Carroll knows what he's got. He's not really going off script all that much. You see, like Buffalo does this shit all the time where they run the ball 8 times a game and throw it 52. Like, come on, like you don't have to go through any more steps to try to prove that Josh Allen's supposed to be the MVP. How about you just try to create some balance? And Seattle's doing that too. Like, they're running the ball, they're staying committed to that. They're not trying to throw it 45 times with Geno, because if you're going to do that, you're probably going to lose. If you can keep it to 30 and under, you know.
I mean, hey, he did it. I mean, yeah, the only time Geno had to throw a lot was against Detroit, but Penny at the time had 100 yards rushing.
Yeah.
So it kind of added up. So it kind of like,
kind of evened itself out.
Yeah, it evened itself out. I'm all about, like, man, going with your personnel. I do think Buffalo needs to find a consistent running game at some point, because I mean, for the most part, you good. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna pretty much beat anybody in the air. But at some point, Devin Singletary by himself ain't gonna cut it.
No, well, I mean,
who they just pick up to?
They just traded Nyheim Hines.
No, that was the Dolphins. Who was it? Oh, Hines.
Yeah, they
got help either. That's like getting another Singletary.
Yeah, well, he's a better pass catching back, but they also got James Cook.
But like, that doesn't like help the problem.
No, but what irritates me is just the fact that they don't really utilize him, because like Singletary is averaging almost 5 yards a carry. Like, they've got guys who can run it, they just don't, and that's what's frustrating me is just the play calling. Obviously, like it's resulting in wins, so I'm trying not to be that guy. But you also have to look at it as like, the biggest thing for me is situationally, can you put games away? And Buffalo has let teams back in. If you can situationally run the ball when it's 3rd and short in the 3rd and 4th quarter, that's really because they can get up early on teams, but when you need to secure it and run the clock down and do 4-minute offenses, can you do it? And that's where they're failing in late in the 3rd and late in the 4th and letting teams back in it.
Man, yes, you throw ahead, you run to win, but
because I don't subscribe to the rule that you have to run the ball to set up the pass. Like the days of that is over.
That's over. That's stupid.
You don't have to do that. Yeah.
You couldn't put me in the 70s. I'm be like, oh, you ain't got enough corners to deal with me. You couldn't put me in the 70s. Oh my God.
Shoot, you put me behind that Dallas.
You want to sling it. Like,
yeah, you put me behind that Dallas O line. I'm giving you
Jones, or who else was slinging back then? Terry Bradshaw. Give me one of them dudes who can sling the rock.
Dan Fouts.
Dan Fouts. I do some damn not really Bob Greasy, but I do some damage. You couldn't tell me nothing. You couldn't tell me nothing. All right, man. We're gonna switch gears to basketball, man. I'm a Laker fan, but Draymond's my favorite player. Everybody knows that. The Warriors are, I think, 3-7 now.
Yeah,
man. What you think's going on with that, man?
The thing that I think that is really going on is, because I don't really necessarily believe in championship hangovers and stuff like that, especially when it comes to like Golden State. They've had that core together for so long.
I don't believe it in basketball. I do believe it in football.
Okay, that's fair. But what I'm seeing is the thing when this whole thing happened with Draymond and Jordan Poole, I told on one of the episodes of my podcast, I had told people that, the whole reason why this got leaked is for a reason. It's obviously not Jordan Poole's camp. It's got to be Draymond, because Draymond feels like the old man and the guy being left out, because he thinks in his mind, he feels like he's the dude responsible for the championships, even though he's also responsible for them losing one, essentially, if you really want to put it into that big of a context of them blowing the 3-1 lead to Cleveland for being suspended for a game, but they still had game 6 and 7. So I guess that's neither here nor there. But he's now seen that he's the old guy, and Jordan Poole is coming for his money, and Kuminga is going to be coming for his money. And I think that got to him, and he let it get out, his frustrations get out. And there might be some beef internally in that locker room that they haven't really necessarily dealt with. I think that Draymond Green probably gets moved before the trade deadline, just so they can open up things for those younger players. Because I don't think they're getting rid of Steph. I don't think they're getting rid of Clay. And that's if they can't turn it around. If they're like 30 games into the season and they're still below 500, you might see them move. If they get it turned around quickly, I think everything will be fine. These guys have been playing together for so damn long. It's really hard to believe that they won't be able to figure it out and get back to playing Warriors basketball sooner than later.
A lot of their losses have been close. So like a lot of their losses,
they've blown a lot of big leads too, though, haven't they? Over the past at least 2 or 3 games.
Yeah, they just blew one to Orlando.
They were up 13 in the third, weren't they?
They were up quite a bit. I don't even remember them coming back. I just turned on the game like, oh shit. But the whole thing with Draymond is that I believe Draymond is always going to feel like he doesn't get enough credit. But when you're the dirty kind of do-it-all glue guy, you're never going to get the credit. You're never going to get the credit.
Yeah.
Do they win those? I don't think they win those championships without Draymond, just like they don't win without Steph or Clay.
Yeah, and that's always been my argument with Draymond, is the fact that, yeah, and that's the thing that I've always said about Draymond, is that he's not perfect for everybody. Like if you put him on Orlando, he maybe changes that team 5-6 wins. But if you take him off of Golden State, that's a huge part of what they do, because like you said, like you're right, he's the facilitator of the offense more often than not. He does the dirty work, and he does stuff. His basketball IQ is off the charts. Like people clown him because he's basically 7-7-7 every night, right. But the dude does everything you need to from a basketball standpoint for you to win. And you're right, in his mind, he thinks that he's the reason why. In all reality, he's not, but he's a huge contributing part to it, though.
He's not the reason, but whenever the Warriors don't have him, they're a completely different team.
Yeah. Obviously they obviously looked way different. They looked way different with Steph out there a couple of years ago. I mean, they had Steph and Clay both out, and that team was doo-doo butter, and that's how they got Wiseman. But Steph's really the guy who makes everything go.
That's 100%. Yeah. I think Draymond acknowledges that. He acknowledges that, like, they go as Steph goes.
Well, he knows that's the thing, is like he knows his place, and he knows that Steph is the guy who basically gets him paid too. Mm-hmm. So he knows where he's at. He's self. People want to clown him.
Draymond's a smart dude.
He's smart. He's self-aware more than people think.
The Warriors have all the leverage in this situation. If they do well, if Draymond plays great, Warriors win a championship, Draymond can go do whatever he wants to do. He already helped the Warriors win 5 championships.
No, they're at 4. I think they're at 4 now, but
no, I'm saying that this is assuming they win this.
Okay, I got you.
This, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and Draymond, I personally think if they were to win this year, there's no way Draymond not trying to come back to 3P. There's no way.
He's under contract until next year, right?
He has a player option.
So if he doesn't get traded this year and he opts in for his player option next year, that's when I think you could see it get traded, because obviously expiring contracts in the NBA, those are actually an asset. But
people think he's not after a max. Like he might say that, but he's not after a max. He's realistic.
I was gonna say if he thinks he's getting
there's no way he's gonna be 34, 35. Somebody give him a 4-year, $200 million contract.
Get out of here.
Fuck out of here. Draymond, you my guy, but nah, bro. Also, Poole's been struggling. Clay picked it up the last 2 games, but Clay was struggling.
Yeah.
And weirdly enough, Draymond, this might sound weird, Draymond has scored double digits in a couple games, and it's like, damn, Draymond, you ain't supposed to be getting 12 points. Like, why you got 12?
You're not allowed to get double digits. You're not allowed to average it. That's
like
something wrong with the basketball
and Looney have a combined 10 games where they can get double digits. Because that ain't supposed to happen.
No.
That ain't supposed to happen.
That's off script.
Yeah, man. Because what happened is when Looney got 17 against Orlando, they fucking lost. Like, I'm not blaming Looney, but it's like, why is Looney scoring?
He's got the rebound putbacks. He thinks he's Dwight.
Bro, Looney, I would love Looney on my team any day, but I hate watching him on the court. Cause he just moves so ugly.
He almost looks lost sometimes.
Like, yeah, it's like, but he's smart. And apparently, do you know how old he is?
Wait, 26?
No, he's 25.
25? I was gonna say, because like he
came in the league at 18.
Damn. It's weird with these basketball players because they are coming in at like 18, 19 years old. Like Zach LaVine's been in the league for like 30 years, it feels like, and I don't even think he's 30 yet, but it just feels like that.
Yeah, Zach LaVine came in 2015, I think. Yeah, because he came in
Minnesota.
Hey, you see your phone?
Yeah.
Okay. No, did you see the message?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, man. Nah, but yeah, man. Zach LaVine came in with Kyle Anderson, and it was one more person on that team with them. I can't remember who it was.
Oh, in Minnesota?
No, when they went to UCLA. He was on the team with Kyle Anderson, and it was one more person. They had 3 guys come out. I think it was Looney.
Was it? I don't watch a whole lot of college hoops, so like that one's kind of eluding me.
It's a blur. Like I cannot remember.
It's gonna drive you bonkers.
It was somebody. I can't remember who it was. All right, so I have an opinion that a lot of people disagree with, but I don't think there's any other way to fix it. So, when you tell me what you would do, then I'll tell you my opinion. How do you fix tanking in the NBA?
I've actually been on record over the last couple of years saying, like, I think that relegation is needed. And like, you couldn't do it with football. I mean, you could, I guess if you really wanted to, you could probably integrate it with the XFL once it's back up and running. But the NBA like has the G League, so in theory, you could always relegate the 2 worst teams down, because that's the way that I wanted to do it. What I've suggested is whoever the 2 teams that are in the championship of the G League, those 2 teams bump up. The 2 worst teams from the NBA, whoever record wise, have to go down to the G League. Now, I don't know how you would do that as far as salaries and stuff like that. Somebody way smarter than me is going to have to do that and figure that shit out. But I think that relegation is how you do that. I also think that you could flip the way that the draft order is done. I don't like rewarding tanking. I think it's dumb. That I understand wanting to create parity, quote unquote, but at some point in time, you got to try to do like Herm Edwards said, you play to win the game. Like, what are you trying to do? Like, you can't be out here throwing out dog shit products and expecting people to pay ridiculous amounts for it. So relegation in the NBA. I also think if you flip the draft order, if you win, you get the number 1 overall pick. Incentivize winning and stop trying to incentivize losing to try to create balance. That and along with them I think that also getting rid of this this luxury tax thing is going to be really good as well. I think that all 3 of those things combined are a way that you can create a real competitive balance in the NBA and actually harvest a winning environment instead of trying to encourage playing like doo-doo butter.
That's a funny. I've never heard somebody say that. That's funny. But all right, I can get with that. The relegation thing, the owners is not going for that.
No, like, they're not going to. There's no way. There's no way.
The reason it works with other teams is because like everybody still would get paid similar. Like the G League, you going from millions to 40,000. That's not happening.
Yeah, you're not going from like a base like league, like the league minimum of like 1.5 to go like 100 grand.
I'm good for if the NBA was like that, I'd be good for it. But I just don't think logistically it's possible. I'd like to see it happen, but I don't know how you could even navigate through that. You can't there's no way you can make it. There's no way in America you could do that. Like, nah. There's
Yeah,
no way that they're
overseas they do that shit on the
overseas. They
regular.
do that shit all the time. Like, nah, they do that. They got all these divisions and shit. But here's my way. It's the simplest way. Make the draft random.
Oh, completely.
Like completely random. So, and everybody looks at the worst thing. So what if the Warriors were to get Wemby? Oh, so the fuck what? Like,
Yo, that dude's
let's think about it like
nasty.
this.
That
Let's
dude
think
is
about it like this.
filthy.
You talk about parity, right? Give me 5 teams, and you can have the other 25. And I guarantee you one of my 5 teams will win the championship. Would you play? Would you, if you gave me those 5 teams, would you take that bet?
Yeah, probably.
I'm just saying, like, people think like it's just so wide open. It's never been that wide open. You got about 5 teams who could realistically win. You got another 5 that could surprise you, and the rest of the 10 ain't got, and the rest of the 20 ain't got no chance.
Yeah, and it's a lot like football for the most part, like because teams kind of go on these runs. We see it every once in a while, like the Cavs for that 4 or 5 year stretch when LeBron went back, the Warriors over the last 10 years, the Lakers for a bit, the Celtics for a bit, the Bulls for a bit. Like we see that there's these runs of dynastic, you know, if you look at it in its entirety, you could label them dynasties, mini or not otherwise, but the Warriors are going to be at the end of their run within the next couple of years, I would imagine. Then it's going to be somebody else. You know, it might be Milwaukee because they still got prime years of Giannis left. You know, it might be Denver. You know, or it might be Memphis because they're super young. They got a good core. Like you don't really know. But I'm with you. Like I think that's an interesting point. I've never really thought about making it completely random from top to bottom. But that would be dope too.
We got to put an emphasis on drafting, scouting, and developing because everybody's just trying to find a savior, and I'm like, just because you're bad doesn't mean you should just get a top talent and still be bad. Like,
yeah, you got to do your job as a coach and stuff.
I don't like seeing guys wasted.
Well, because we see that across the board, like in all sports, because you're bad, you send one generational talent there, and we can label them as bust in their first 2 years because the front office is dog shit. The rest of the roster is trash. You know, if you don't have the other piece, and this is like what I was going to say earlier when we were talking about, you know, Geno Smith and other quarterbacks, is I was finally glad. I'm going to switch gears for just a moment. I'm sorry. Like when it comes to the NFL draft with quarterbacks, almost every single year we see 3-4 quarterbacks go in the first round. And I was expecting that this year. And I saw GMs actually stay pat and pick the best player available to build good football teams instead of reaching and just getting a quarterback because they need one. This is another thing with the NBA of just because you get the number 1 overall pick doesn't mean you're going to do much. Like Banchero right now looks like a stud in Orlando. That team might win 20 games. You know?
Yeah. And I'm like, and personally, I would just like to see a stud go to a decent team. Like somebody like Toronto. Like I would like to see Toronto get Wemby. Like that's a team I would like to see get Wemby because Toronto, like other than Scotty Barnes, all their picks, none of them are top 10 picks. None of them are lottery picks. All the guys are on the team. None of them are lottery picks other than Scotty Barnes. And Scotty Barnes not even the best player. Scotty Barnes probably the third best player right now.
Yeah, Siakam and Van Vliet are probably. Siakam is their best player.
Now Siakam's definitely the best player, and Van Vliet, and then he's battling with OG. He's battling with OG for real.
Yeah.
So it's like you know what I'm saying. I'm like I want to see like would be another one like. Well, like Dallas, like Dallas getting somebody like Wemby.
Oh, because see, that's the thing, Dallas, and because we're talking about, especially in the NBA, where one dude matters so much. If Luka goes down, Dallas is like a 15-win team. That roster is not good enough to compete, especially in the West. Luka alone is responsible for 30-ish% of your points individually, along with what he's dropping to other people. He's responsible for like 50% of your offense, basically. If you lose that guy, you're done. So I'm with you, like, as far as if you make it random, you get a chance for these. Dallas isn't even like a small market team, but it's not Chicago, it's not Brooklyn, it's not Los Angeles. And you get a chance to really build something special instead of just being the 4 seed or the 5 seed every single year and then getting bounced.
Also, you can't just it puts more value on like, oh, you're not just gonna throw away draft picks because you know you're not picking high.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
you're
I
not
like
just gonna
that.
throw away your picks. It's like, nah, bro. And plus, you need to know
Well, could
people.
you imagine
People got to know
what
how
we
to scout. People got to know how to
well
draft.
what would be wild too is like because if they were to do that, Sam Presti would be out of his mind because that dude has like 60 draft picks over
Sam
the next 3 seasons. It's
like,
random, but he just got 1 through 10 and then 13 through 18.
yo, that be yeah, he would lose his shit. Like Sam Presti. Oh my god, yeah, that'd be nuts. It would just make you just not want to just throw away your picks.
Yeah,
Sometimes people draft like, oh, okay, he might do it. You know,
I
if you
like
don't
that
have like a
idea.
top flight pick, and bro, dude, you know where the league MVP was drafted last year? Like 42nd.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is like because you're going to see the narrative shift on these guys, and the goalposts get changed. It changes on these dudes day to day just because of how sports media and social media works. Where you can get the number 1 overall pick. Let's like Wembanyama, let's say, if he does go to like Orlando. Now he's a difference maker, but if he's putting up like 30 and 15 and they're still winning 20 games, it's going to be where he's not making anybody else better. Like it's just the narrative is going to change regardless. And you're wasting a talent. So I'm with you. I'd rather if you can make it completely random. Like I said, I never really thought of it that way, but I think that'd be a great move to really.
If the team who wins the championship gets the number 1 pick, so be it. They were probably going to be in the running to win the championship again next year.
Or that'd be a dope thing too. If you win the championship, you get the number 1 overall pick. The other 29, y'all are all random. or something.
Yo, that would be nuts. That would be nuts. I'm like,
we out here trying to start World War V.
You want to win? Get better.
Yep.
People act like getting better is just not a thing. Improvement is not a thing.
Yeah.
All the stars that didn't just come into the league, ain't just born better than everybody. You put in a certain amount of work.
Jason Tatum is a perfect example of that.
Shit, Giannis a perfect example.
Giannis as well. Yo, Giannis went from like, man, he was unstable as a rookie, man. Because I remember watching a clip of him against Chicago, and he felt like he got fouled. And as it was in transition, this is like he was 18, 19 years old, and I think it was like Mike Dunleavy Jr. or Luke Ridenour shot a corner 3, and he just blasted this guy into the stands.
That was Mike Dunleavy. That wasn't his rookie year because that was a playoff game. They didn't make the playoffs that rookie year. So he might have been 2021, but he was still hella young.
Yeah, he was young. But he was unstable at that point.
Man, because Giannis might be from Greece, but he still is African. Like that's not a person you want to piss off.
He's here to throw you out the club.
Man. Like there was a time where you remember when all the Antetokounmpo brothers were about to fight? They were somewhere. And they were all just squatted up, like all 4 of them just ready.
Yo, could you imagine a fight between the Antetokounmpo brothers and the Jokic brothers? That shit would be nasty.
I want to see that. I want to see that.
Yo, we need to get that in a wrestling match.
I know one thing. Don't nobody want to mess with Steven Adams' siblings.
It's wild too. Steven Adams is like 26 or 27. That's bananas to me.
You know he's the youngest of 18.
I think I heard that. I didn't realize it was 18
or 17. He's the youngest of all those Tongan people.
Isn't his sister like an Olympic shot putter?
One of his sisters like an Olympic wrestler or something.
Yeah, I thought like a shot putter or wrestler or
she's
javelin
like 6'2",
throw or something.
220 pounds.
The Aussies are built different, my man.
It's not even no. I mean, no, they're from New Zealand.
New Zealand, that's right.
Yeah, they're Tongan. I think Tongan.
All I know is that is a family you don't want to mess with.
Yeah, that's my bad family right there. But I'm saying we make this draft random. It puts more emphasis on who you pick and on developing. You can't and on trading. You're not just gonna throw away a 1st round pick or a 2nd round pick just because you think, oh, I ain't picking high. I'm just gonna throw it away.
You can get rid of all the protective picks. Yeah, get rid of all the protective picks and stuff like that. It's just straight up.
Like, no protection. No protections. Just straight up. A straight up lottery every day. We go from 30, and if you traded your pick, or if somebody traded, or if you got multiple picks, they'll call your name multiple times, and you go from there.
I like that.
And also, you know what I thought? What if one of these draft picks, like I know this isn't gonna happen, but what if Wemby just says, you know what? Let's say Orlando gets the pick again, and Orlando's trash. They be like, you know what? I don't want to play for Orlando.
Just move on to the
So,
next one.
if Orlando drafts me, I ain't playing. I'm staying in France.
He pulls a Phillip Rivers and a Eli Manning and just.
Or if the Twins, Arceer and Amen, if they be like, nah, we want to play together, kind of like how the Morris twins did.
Oh, they want to do package deal.
Bruh.
Dude, I mean, I think I've okay, I know this will never happen, but I've always thought that the draft is kind of stupid anyways. Like it's the only thing in American occupation and employment where you don't really have a choice to say like where you want to go. I think once you enter the draft, if you got the salary cap, highest bidder wins. Go get it. Like I think that'd be dope. But the draft is never gonna. It's too much of a moneymaker from a television standpoint. The draft will never not go. It will never go away. But I think that it'd be dope to just be like, you want to enter the draft? Who got the most salary cap? Who can give me the most money? Where do I think that I can get the most endorsement deals? I'll go sign there. Just make it free agency right out the gates.
Facts. That'd be crazy. Somebody was like, they're all gonna go to one team. No, they're not.
No, because you can.
No, they're not, because there's not enough money to go around.
Yeah.
And plus, you're trying to go somewhere. You're trying to play. Everybody has different values, so it doesn't even matter. But the Twins. If I'm the Twins, I'm like, hey, get us both, or get one, or get none. Get both or get none. Well, all right, P. Scott, it's been real, man. Hey, always down for you to come back, brother.
Yeah, have me back anytime.
Maybe next time I'll come on yours, man.
Absolutely.
Popping.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'll let you know when like I said, things have been getting a little wild over the past couple of weeks. I haven't even done my own podcast in the last 2 weeks. So once I get back grounded again, I'd love to have you back on my show, and then we'll go ahead and do this again and get a script together.
All right, man. We got this. All right, brother. I'll holler at you, man. Be easy.
Hey, you too, man. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
For sure.